Emily doesn't know what stan means.
I
So,
don't.
Urban Dictionary. Stan means you look up to a person, you watch them, or you truly love their content. It's another way of saying idolize something. Like, you would only stan blank instead of I love that person. And our dog is barking.
Idolizing things is a sin.
Get out of here. Welcome to the log.
Hi friends! Okay, so today in our vlog, we really wanted to talk about something that's really been important to us, it's close to our heart, and we wanted to talk about feminism. And especially being a Christian and a feminist, because sometimes those two get a little, you know what I'm saying, when
Just
you put them
like
together.
that.
People get a little tense when you put those two things together. So we really wanted to talk about it today, what our heart for it is, and if you can be a Christian and a feminist.
For real. So we wanted to just talk about, like, was Jesus a feminist? Were people in the Bible feminists? Like, was Paul a feminist who wrote the majority of our New Testament, one of the most influential people in all of human history? Like, what were his views on men and women? And the fact of the matter is simply, he viewed them as equal, which is the definition of a feminist. Like, that word, I guess, can be misconstrued by people, but a feminist is someone who fights for equality of all sexes. So they want men and women to be of equal standing. And that's something that both Jesus and Paul desperately fought for.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you want a book that, like, explains, like, all the nitty-gritty details, you can go get Paul, Women and Wives by Craig Keener, which is a fantastic book that explains all of this way better than I can. But basically, like, in all of Paul's letters, you have him talking about like the relationships between people. But the times when he gets the most controversial is, like, there's this one instance where Paul is writing and he says, women, you need to submit to your husbands, but husbands, you need to love your wives. And the reason why that was so controversial was in the time period that he's writing, women and children were looked at. Our dog is barking behind me. Where is he? There he is. The head of Oxford. Anyways, but women and children were viewed as property, so they were viewed as less than. So for Paul to say, women, you need to submit to your husbands, wasn't a big deal. But for Paul to say, men, you need to love your wives, was a huge deal that would have, like, rattled people's feathers and freaked people out. And that's the controversial point that he's trying to convey. He's saying, like, hey, you guys already do this. Like, women, you submit to your husbands. Like, that's a thing. But men, you need to step up and you need to be loving your wives as Jesus loved the church, which he died for the church. So that's a pretty significant level of love. And so in that statement, he's pushing for equality. And then he says that whenever you punish your children as a parent, that you need to do it with love and kindness, which once again, which would have pushed the social norms of the place that he's writing to. Like, Paul consistently pushes against the grain in this area to say that women are equal. I mean, the very first person to ever begin a relationship with Jesus in all of Europe was a girl named Phoebe, who later became a leader in her local church. Like, the first Christian in all of Europe was this amazing woman who went on to lead at her church. Like, that so clearly demonstrates that women have the capacity to lead and that women can be leaders and should be leaders. You have famous examples like Esther, but then you have lesser known women throughout the entire Bible, women who are prophetesses, women who are leaders, women who are warriors, women who are doing amazing things. I think of Jesus during his ministry on earth. He was financed by the women around him. Whenever he was at the cross, you want to know who didn't abandon him? The women that he was around. They were the ones who were like, okay, all the guys, they ran off because they suck, but we're going to stay here because we really believe in this. Who did Jesus choose to first reveal himself to whenever he was resurrected? Women, because he believed in women. When society said they were unreliable witnesses, he said, no, I want them to be the first ones to see me because I believe in them, and I think they're qualified, and I think that they're amazing, and I think that they can do anything regardless of what gender roles would ever say.
Yeah.
I'm slightly passionate about this. But yeah, like, throughout the entire Bible, you see men and women should be treated equally. And Jesus goes out of his way to point that out. He goes out of his way to talk to the Samaritan woman when Jewish men should not be talking to women alone. That it would have been seen as taboo. He goes out of his way. Instead of freaking out when this woman who has had her period for years because of a medical condition, and instead of freaking out and being like, ooh, this is so gross, she's so unclean, like most people would do even today, he says, you know what? And he talks to her, and he has a conversation with her, and he doesn't shame her. He loves her. There's so many different examples that make it just so clearly that Jesus and Paul and throughout the Bible, they fought for the equality of men and women. Mm-hmm. And I think that's something that we need to be talking about today. That to be a Christian should be synonymous with saying, you know what, I'm also a feminist. Like, those should not be controversial statements.
Yeah.
Because it's so a part of who Jesus is and what the Bible says, like, which I hate that phrase, like, do this because the Bible says so. But it shows us the history and it shows us this context and it helps us to understand the behavior and the understanding and the mindset of God. And that mindset is total and complete equality between man and woman. And I think to people that we know and people that we've interacted with, and there's this mentality that somehow society and feminism are wrong. Like, they push back on it. I remember seeing this one post that said something along the lines of, like, society needs to stop trying to get women to say that they can do everything that men can because they're forgetting the things that make women unique, that they can do that men can't do. But it's like, okay, let's just pause for a second. What can women do that men can't do? Push a baby out, right? Like, that's the one thing that you can do that I can't do? And carry the baby, right.
Yeah.
But, like, that statement itself of, like, we need to be focusing on the things that women can do that men can't do means that women are only good for making babies. And that's absolutely ridiculous.
I agree.
Women can do everything a man can. They should do everything a man can. Like, this whole idea of, like, women's bodies are built differently or men's bodies are built differently, that doesn't mean that she can't be a construction worker and then I can't be a
cosmetologist.
I wanted to say cosmopolitan, but that's a magazine.
You can be a magazine if you want to.
Exactly. Feminism. But yeah, like, women can do anything that they set their minds to, and the fact of the matter is, that's a Christian outlook. That's a Christian mindset. And it transfers into so many other conversations when you grab a hold of that idea that Christians are feminist. And it goes into so many things. It goes into gender roles, saying that, like, men can't wear pink, or men can't do this, or women can't do this. Women can't wear a certain type of clothing or can't look a certain type of way just because they're women. She needs to be a better cook and I need to do this. But she needs to be the one who's cleaning the house and everything. Like, that's... Gender roles are ridiculous. Like, what makes it so that I have to act a certain way and that she has to act a certain way? Why do I have to be sports? Why do I have to like sports to be considered manly? And why does she need to be cooking and cleaning in order to be considered a good wife? Like, since when did those criteria dictate your level of success in the certain role that God designed you to be in? Like, it's ridiculous whenever you think about it. Or you can go and you can talk about, like, I don't know, it spills into everything. Can men have friends that are girls? Of course they can if you don't treat women like a sex object. Like, the reason why people freak out and like, oh, like, that guy is friends with all these girls, blah, 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 blah. You can't do that if you're in a relationship. I mean, you can if you treat women as people and not as sexual things that need to be conquered or that need to be taken. Like, if you view them as a person, you don't have a problem having a friendship with somebody of the opposite gender. Like, it's just not a thing. Or you can talk about modesty. Modesty is one that is huge right now, especially whenever you think of, like, school dress codes perpetuating rape culture. Like, this idea that if a girl's spaghetti strap is 1.9 inches instead of 2 inches, because that's what the dress code says, that somehow a 35-year-old teacher is gonna be freaking out because he can't handle that extra 0.1 inch of shoulder. But the fact of the matter is, the issue is not the girl's shirt. The issue is that you have a 35-year-old teacher who's attracted to a 12-year-old girl. Like, we miss the entire issue here when we get focused on this false idea of what we think modesty is. Like, modesty is simply dressing or acting or doing anything that is bringing attention to you for the sake of, like, puffing you up or showing yourself off. Like, if I wore a Supreme shirt and like a Louis Vuitton collab Supreme jacket in New York or Chicago, be fine. I wear that in rural Arkansas, that's immodest because I'm like flouting, I'm showing my clout, I'm showing like all the fact that like I have money and that I'm doing this. That's immodest. But wearing a crop top and showing a little bit too much belly, if you're afraid that that's going to distract the students in your classroom, you're missing the point, because it's not a woman's job to somehow fix a man's issues. Like, if a guy can't keep his concentration when a girl shows her belly button, the issue is not the girl, the issue is the guy. Like, that should not be how we look at this issue. I don't understand this whole concept. Like, it's totally fine if you want to be modest and you want to cover up, but that's your own personal decision that you shouldn't be imposing onto others. But yeah, modesty, and it's ridiculous too, because modesty is so cultural. Like, a crop top could be immodest in one location, but totally modest in another location. And so why don't we as Christians stop getting so caught up with whether or not people are immodest or modest, and stop viewing people like they're sexual objects, and stop acting like it's a woman's responsibility to cover up because a man can't control themselves. Okay, so like that's a good point. Like, let me just take you for a second and read Matthew 5 in verses 27 through 30. So he's talking about adultery. And in that section of verses, he says, let's see, in Matthew 5:29, so if your eye, even your good eye, causes you to lust, gouge it out and throw away. It's better for you to lose one part of your body than for your whole body to be thrown in hell. Basically, he's saying, listen, guys, if your eye is causing you to lust, go to that woman and tell her to put some clothes on. No. He says, if your eye is causing you to lust, gouge out your freaking eyes because it's a personal issue. Like, it's not, oh, wow, that girl's making me lust. She's so, like, she's this word or she's that word. She really needs to cover up her shoulders. Or, man, that midriff, those knees, woo, doing it for me. No. If that's my reaction when I see another human being who is created specifically and specially and wonderfully by God, I'm the one with the issue, not her. Modesty and the way we treat it in the church drastically needs to be modified. Yes, modesty is a thing. Yes, but that is a personal conversation that you have. It's a conversation that happens within the culture and within the place that you find yourself in. And it should never be, the reason why you dress modestly should never be so that you don't make a man look at you and be like, oh no, I don't want him to have an issue. That's his issue. It is not on any one person to be responsible for the actions and behaviors of others. That is a weight none of us were designed to carry. It is not my responsibility, and it is not a weight that is in my shoulders if students in our youth group leave after I've told them something and do the exact opposite. That's not on me. I did my role. I acted and I loved in the way that I felt God called me to. And if people act another way, that's not something that's on my shoulders. And in the same way, if you dress a certain way and somebody else is having issues and they're in a place where they need to work through something, that's not a weight that you need to carry. It's something that is a personal thing that is happening on a personal journey that's going on in their life, and that's not something that you need to carry. And so that's my deal with the dress code and modesty. And then the last thing I wanted to say is just this idea or this phrase that says like boys will be boys or bro code. That's something that feminism so clearly addresses. And I don't want to make feminism this thing that like you should believe in feminism because it's beneficial to men. Like, no, you should believe in feminism because women need feminism and that should be a good enough reason. But on top of all that, it is beneficial to both sexes. One, you're fighting toxic masculinity, which is a whole nother conversation that I won't go into. But this idea of boys will be boys as an excuse for men's behavior is ridiculous to me.
Yeah.
Like, you have a little kid. So you have a little kid and they burp in public, okay? If it's a girl, you look at her and say, no, that's not very ladylike. And you're putting restrictions on her. Now, if it's a boy, you say, boys will be boys, and you give them freedom. And then we act like, oh, girls mature so much faster than boys. That's not true at all. Girls don't mature faster than boys. We as a society have forced them to mature faster. Not because of their biology. Their biology has shifted because of the fact that we put these standards on them. We say to be a woman is to be ladylike and to have all these restrictions put on you, but to be a man is to have freedom and to say boys will be boys, and that's just locker room talk, and that's just how men are. No, that's just how jerks are and people who are disrespectful are. We need to stop discriminating between these two groups and say, you know what, there's behavior that's acceptable and unacceptable, and whether you're a guy or a girl, it's acceptable or it's unacceptable. Boys will be boys is not a valid excuse to justify someone's behavior. Boys will be boys is justifying and perpetuating rape culture, and it's justifying and perpetuating this idea that men get to act a certain way and get to act in freedom where women have to be restricted and pulled away. No. Women consistently through the Bible have been empowered, have been believed in, have been championed. And we've missed out on that so much in the church. The fact that a woman lead pastor is controversial baffles me. Because what makes a woman unqualified to lead? Nothing but our own preconceived notions that they're somehow the weaker sex. Which is by no means the truth or the reality of the situation that we find ourselves in. So to sum up all of that, Jesus was a feminist, Paul was a feminist, I'm a feminist.
I'm a feminist.
Emily's a feminist. I want to speak for you.
Thanks. I can speak for myself.
Exactly.
Even though I didn't talk that whole time.
But Christians should be feminists.
Yeah.
And if you want to talk about this more with us, you can comment down below. You can comment and just ask for one of our numbers if you don't have our numbers, and we can text and we can talk about it. But this is something that we believe in so strongly. And there's so many great, amazing scholars out there who can delve into the Bible and tackle all the different biblical passages that are out there that I don't have time to talk about in this video because I feel like I'm already ranting like crazy. But this really is a super, super big issue in the church. Something that we need to work towards. And just for a second, I want to give props to the AG. The AG is like, so like in Christian, you have like denominations. So there's like Christian and Catholic and Christian and Methodist and Baptist. And one of those is the AG, the Assemblies of God. And they've done an incredible job of putting out these things called position papers where they detail like their positions on certain things. And they've done a great job of getting ahead of the game and saying, you know what, we believe in women. Women have been empowered and have been leaders in the Bible, and they can and should be leaders in our local churches. So props to them for being out there and ahead of the game when it comes to this. We've been so behind the ball for years and years and years when it comes to championing and empowering women. So props to them, and props to all of the Assemblies of God churches and all the churches everywhere who believe in women and champion them and put them in positions of leadership, because that's the change that our country needs right now. If we want to see change happen for women and see equality pushed, we need more women in leadership. And that is the end of this rant.
Ow! On my leg.
You want to sign us off?
Yeah, my dog ripped this off of the thing behind me while we were talking.
Oh no.
It's okay, he's fine. He didn't need it. I got it.
Oh, there you go.
Alright, guys. Sorry I didn't talk a whole lot, but he's so passionate about it. Like, how can you not just want to listen to him talk about it the whole time?
I'm sure a lot of people didn't want to listen to that. If you skipped ahead and you're with us now, sub.
Alright, thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you hit that like button if you want us to talk about more issues like this. Probably do it anyway, but still, you should like this video. Hit subscribe if you're not already, and then turn the little bell on for post notifications. All right, we'll see you guys next week.
All right, bye guys.